Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast, brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use that promo code DNVR20. You'll save 20% off your entire purchase at CBD infused, deliciously rich, and potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I am your host, Drew Creasman. I'm the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. With me, as always, is beat writer Patrick Lyons. But enough about us. None of that matters. We have got a very special guest for you. The man who threw the single best season in Colorado Rockies history, if you're looking at the advanced metrics, or really kind of almost regardless of what numbers you're looking at. Very excited to have joining the show, Mr. Marvin Freeman.
How's it going? You guys got me? Can you hear me pretty good?
Sounding great.
Yep. Fantastic.
Great,
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm in between pitching sessions. I got a team out here now, so thought I'd jump in here and give you guys a little bit of love,
Appreciate it. Yeah, that's probably a good spot. That's probably a good spot to start off, the Marvin Freeman Youth Foundation that you've got going. I know that's a big passion project of yours. You even got Marvin Freeman Field out here in Denver, a nice little ball field named after you. But tell everyone what you're doing on in your neck of the woods with youth sports, particularly baseball.
Well, I'm all over the place now. I'm out here in Atlanta, back where I started with the Braves, and just have a real good connection in this community with the youth. They actually their parents still remember me, so kind of gives me a little bit of legitimacy when I'm doing these pitching camps and clinics. But at the same time, it gives me an opportunity to help a lot of these kids that are underserved, that doesn't have that elite training or the ability to get to the next level just because they don't have the information. So just giving them the information and making sure that they get the same advantages as some of the kids that may not have as much talent but have the resources. So just trying to provide resources for today's youth.
That's something that became much more of a talking point out here in the last year with Ian Desmond stepping aside, and of course a renewed conversation about the Black Lives Matter movement and all of that. And so, do you feel like baseball is making those positive strides forward? You're doing your part, obviously, out there. Would you like to see, more effort given to that so that there are more kids across the nation who will have those resources that you're talking about?
Yeah, but it starts one person at a time. We can always say what we wish somebody else was doing, but if nobody's doing anything, nothing gets done. So I just try and touch as many as I can, maybe be an influence on one or two at the minimum, and then that way I can at least say that I've left a mark on what I know, because you can't take this information with you.
That's right. You had an interesting tweet today, I think, that kind of highlights what's going on in the game of baseball and why we're losing so many really fantastic athletes in baseball to other sports. Because back in our day, and we're not young spring chickens ourselves either, but the coach, all the equipment for the team came in one bag, and all you had was a glove, your cleats, and you might not have even owned a bat. There might have been a team bat. And nowadays, if you're not investing, quote unquote, $1,000 or so just for the equipment, and yes, for all the traveling, then you can easily get overlooked. And it's a game of have and have nots in a lot of ways. How much have you noticed that the youth sports kind of become this multi-million-dollar industry in the last couple of decades?
Well, like I said in my tweet today, I said it's not the kid's fault.
Right.
The parents always say, well, I want my kid to have it better than I had it when I was growing up. But what was so wrong with the way we had it? I mean, we turned out okay. I had one glove for Little League all the way up through high school and college. I still got the same glove. And if you look on it, when I was in high school, I wrote my wife's name in the middle of my glove. She was my girlfriend then. But I show her that all the time. I say, now, this is some dedication right here. I took you to the field with me then. I'm still taking you to the field with me now. So, I mean, it's not – I always tell guys you can't buy a game. Guys want to have their swag. They want to be swagged out. And, that costs. So If you can afford to do it, fine. But that only puts pressure on the kids that don't have these things, that may want these things, and then they go home and feel like since they can't get these things like everyone else on the team, they need to go somewhere and play something else. And we see a lot of fall off in youth baseball, especially in the black community at 13, 14 years old, because once you get to high school, baseball speeds up. It gets tougher. And these guys aren't getting that winter training, and they're not getting that off-season stuff that everybody else is doing. So the game kind of gets a little bit fast, and it passes them up. So they go somewhere where it's 5 guys and 1 basketball, or 22 guys in the football. So you don't need to have a lot of money to train. If you're just playing baseball, then sometimes you price yourself out of the game.
Yeah.
I got to know.
Well, let's take it. Oh, go ahead. Throw it in.
One last question. Who was on your mitt? So when I was a kid growing up, mine was a George Brett model. Did you have a player on yours?
No, I had the Wilson A2000. They didn't put names in those. I guess Wilson was the name they put in. It was supposed to be like the best glove on the market, and my parents told me, "Hey, make this glove last forever." And I was like, "All right." So I still have it. So I guess I kept my word on that.
There you go. Fantastic. Well, we do got to take you back in time, but leave where you are in Atlanta, because before your story in Colorado could start, you were a member of a legendary rotation, and you guys were out there doing some interesting, special things in Atlanta. What are some of the first things that come to your mind remembering your time with the Braves?
Winning. We won every year.
Yep.
We went to the park every day. Everybody was in a good mood all the time. I think out of my 4 years here, every year we went to the playoffs. Having that attitude brought, continuity in the clubhouse. There was no cliques where one group was hating on another group. Everybody got along. Winning was new to the city then, so the fans came out and supported baseball in a way that only winning will. But when I did leave Atlanta and going to Colorado, when we first played the Rockies in '93, coming over to Mile High Stadium and seeing the kind of reception that the fans were giving players, and the stadium was packed with 70, 80,000 people because it was an old football field. And I was like, man, I got to come here, man. These guys love it here. Not knowing that it was a pitcher's nightmare to come and pitch in Colorado. But hey, I was interested in that energy, and I knew the Rockies were an upstart team, and I wanted to be a part of them building something that was where it is today.
Yeah, and with like a lot of successful ball clubs, anytime you've got expansion, teams will try to pluck from the best. So, they eventually got yourself. Dale Murphy started out as an original Rocky. Man behind the scenes, we all know and love, Paul Egan's came over from Atlanta as well. But, when you were with Atlanta and you were winning, how much of a treat was it where 3 out of 5 days, the man on the bump that day starting the game for Atlanta was a Hall of Famer? Again, we're talking about Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz. How much of a treat was that?
It was a humongous treat, especially if you were a relief pitcher. I always said we had the best seats in the house for every game. We had Steve Avery. He went 18-6. He was like a 19-year-old kid. And Charlie Liebrandt won 15 games that year too. So every night out, somebody was going 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 innings. And then the nights that Greg Maddox pitched, we just kept our street clothes on under our uniform. I mean, we just take the uniform off and go to the car. We didn't even have to shower. So, I mean, it was 2 hours. The game was over with, and we were back in the car. So just watching those guys go out there and do their work was incredible. We did have 2 Cy Young Award winners in the bullpen with Steve Bedrosian and Mark Davis. So we had 5 Cy Young Award winners on the team at one time. And if you're a pitcher and you can't learn anything with that staff around you, you're a complete numbskull. So, it was always a learning experience, learning from some guys that were successful and just trying to emulate some of the things that they did because, if they're doing it and it's working for them, you try it. If it works for you, you keep it.
Well, you said, you didn't know the pitching nightmare that Colorado would become, but you wouldn't know it based on your first season out here. How much of that was taking those lessons from guys, the energy of the crowd, maybe it just being new and not knowing what to expect, and how much of that was just you were in the zone, man. You had it going right.
Well, like I said, when I first left Atlanta, I had been like studying Maddox and Glavine, studying their bullpens, seeing some of the things they did differently from what I did. It was always preparation with them, but for me, a bullpen was like, let me see if I can knock the catcher down, And so when I learned that they were out there trying to work on acquiring a field, trying to repeat a delivery, trying to keep the ball down, trying to make, different pitches do different things, I brought that approach to Colorado, and I kept it simple. I think my first year in Colorado, I tried to just imitate what Greg Maddux did. Throw strike one, sink the ball, get ahead with your breaking pitch, make sure you work fast, and try and get guys out on 3 pitches or less. That formula worked great. Then we moved to Coors Field. Coors Field was a little different from Mile High Stadium in the fact that Coors Field was like everywhere in that park, it'll go out. And Mile High, it was like 440 to right center. So you can kind of pitch to that part of the ballpark. You pitch right-hander hitters away, trying to encourage them to either roll over on something or go the other way with it. You had some area to work with out there. But then you get to Coors Field, it was like arena baseball. You leave it up, it's going out. I don't care what direction it gets hit in. A pop-up, the pitcher is cringing. He's like holding his breath. And we didn't have no humidor back then. So the balls were all like super balls. And, it was hard on pitching because pitchers had to do so much to keep the ball down. And they tried to do too much in keeping it down. And that's when they ended up making more mistakes. So just the differences in the ballpark made me have 2 different approaches. And, there was no bailout area in Coors Field. And I think at Mile High Stadium, I was able to, pretty much utilize areas in the field that was going to make me successful.
That's really fascinating to hear about from that perspective. Like you said, they have done the humidor now. They've got that fence out there. The guys call it the Brightich barrier. They put in right center field, where I think a lot of those kind of wind tunnel home runs would go out.
Definitely a wind tunnel. Definitely.
Are there other ballparks that compare to the oddness of it, or is it head and shoulders just the strangest place to pitch?
Well, it's not so much as it's just strange to pitch there. It's just that the ball carries a little bit better. So you can make a mistake in another ballpark and it'll be at the warning track. Well, not what I saw this year. Every ballpark, balls are flying out like it's – I've never seen so many 450-foot home runs in my life. So I started thinking maybe some of these balls might have a little rabbit in it. So, just being the fact that baseball is really promoting offense, the balls may be wound a little bit tighter. But, Denver, you're going to still get that little 7% less distance you have to hit it just because of the altitude.
Right. The last one that I have for you here, and it looks like Patrick may be having some internet issues, but was really about, how much pride do you take in that year? But then Cy Young, come on, what's going on there? Come on, what happened? But just seriously though, that season that you were, especially now in hindsight, because at the time we had 2 years of Rockies baseball. You had a great year. You're feeling great about it. We didn't know what to come, but now we've had 28 years of Rockies baseball. And by some of the metrics, you were 10 or 13% better that year than any starting pitcher has managed to be since. So do you take a certain amount of special pride in what you were able to accomplish, even now, with hindsight in 1994?
Oh, most definitely, man. I remember when Freeland was going for the title a couple years ago. I was following that, like, like give up a run but win the game. Give up a run. So I
Get that
enjoy
ERA up
having
just a little bit.
get it up over 2.80, and I don't care how you do. But it's something I still brag about, man. It's a feather that you have in your hat, and they always say when you get my age, you're going to look back on your career and then appreciate it more. Well, I'm at that point now where I can look back on things and say, well, I did this. It's still standing, and I'm still trying to hang on to it as long as possible. But yeah, if you got something that you did, you want to hold on to it as long as you can. So I get a thrill out of following the Rockies pitchers and making sure that nobody gets close to that record. So it's still all fun for me.
It does look like Patrick's coming back in. I was going to maybe steal his final question. And I don't want to put it on the spot. I was going to ask him about the Rockies Hall of Fame, Patrick. It's something we've talked about. They're finally making a Rockies Hall of Fame out here. They got McGregor Square across from the park. Is that something that would mean something to you? Would that be an honor? Would you very much like to see your name enshrined in the Colorado Rockies Hall of Fame?
Well, who would say no to that? I mean, at the same time, though, I wouldn't be at the house crying and sitting up anticipating getting in there. But yeah, I mean, it would be a great honor. Even if it was the Hall of Fame for that one season, I would love to be part of the team's history because, again, if I've done something that nobody else has done before, then that makes me a standout. So you put standouts in the museums, and I'm a relic in my own right. So I would love to say that I'm part of the Rockies Hall of Fame. Even consideration for that would be an honorary thing. So I mean, yeah, it would be exciting for me and everyone that knows me.
I want to see you in an Old Timers Day game because I think you still got it. But I want to know who you want to go against. Who, if you got 3 pitches left in you, who do you want to face?
What you mean? What you mean? If just got done throwing. I'm still 85 with movement, man. I mean, I got these kids that they like, Coach, I can't believe you 57 with that type. I said, well, Satchel was 59 when he came up. And so, I mean, hey, I still got 2 more years before my rookie year is over with. So, I would like to face Dante Bichette because I love when he goes deep and he does his little shucky ducky. And I would like to see that again. I'd like to see Big Cat hit one over the out over those restaurants out in left field off me. And, of course, Larry Walker. Larry Walker can probably go over the stadium right now. So, yeah, I mean, I've been playing in these, we call them Legends games now, not old timer. Okay.
I like that.
Legend.
That's much better. Hey, real quick, do you want to share the story of your first win? Because it wasn't just about your first win. Is that right?
Oh, my first major league win was incredible. I was with the Phillies, and my wife was like due any day to have the baby, and she knew I was pitching on a certain day, so she didn't call me when she went into labor. And I found out in the 4th inning, I was facing the Mets in '86. Darryl Strawberry got the only hit off me. It was a 1-hitter, went 7 innings, a 1-hit ball for the win. And my daughter was born in the 4th inning of that game. So I was delivering, my wife was delivering, everybody was delivering. And it's on the back of one of my baseball cards. And every time September 21st, 1986 comes up, I go to my daughter and I say, hey, you know what today is? It's the anniversary of my first big league win. And it always pokes her. She's always like, okay, Daddy, yeah, happy birthday to me too. So, it's 2 and 1, man. I got married on Christmas Eve. And, so I kind of group things together. That way I don't have to remember a lot of stuff. So that's how that worked out. But it was probably the best day I ever had in baseball.
Wow.
All right. Well, this is one of the best days we've ever had on this podcast. No joke. It has been an absolute treat to have you. We'll have to get you back. We're going to launch the official Marvin Freeman for Rockies Hall of Fame campaign. So when that's picking up steam, we'll get you back on to deliver the commencement address. It'll be fantastic.
Sounds spectacular. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me, guys. And anytime you want me and we talking baseball, I'm your man.
All right.
So
we'll be
Marvin.
in touch. Thank you. Thank you so
You
much.
guys take care.
Great.
All righty.
You too.
Thank you. So
wow.
good. So
Wow.
good.
There was I just had a weird random scene from The West Wing flash in my mind where the president is like called the Butterball hotline or something. He's done some like ridiculous thing and he just finishes it. And with such extreme joy, he just goes, "That was fantastic. We should do that once a week." And that's how I feel right now. Like, why isn't Marvin Freeman just on this show every week? Oh, well, he's got stuff to do. But yeah, Will, that was absolutely awesome. It sounds like he would be down to talk baseball with us again sometime. So we will do everything we can to make that happen.
Yeah, he's anybody who sticks around in the bigs for, even just a handful of seasons, they're going to have those fantastic stories. Again, your first win, not only does it come against the inevitable World Series champs in the 86 Mets, but your daughter's born on that day, which is just, so fantastic, of course. Playing at, I wanted to ask him about, Fulton County Stadium in Atlanta was dubbed the launching pad because, it sits at about a little over 1,000 feet above sea level. Oh my God, those balls. And then coming to, Mile High and then Coors Field and seeing the difference in that. It's, obviously a night and day thing. And I don't know if you were able to touch on it while I was out, but this idea that how, it was obviously an extreme disadvantage to now no longer able to, just to pitch away to right-handed hitters because now that ball is going over, the right center fence where the Bridich barrier is now. But while that's obviously a disadvantage for the pitchers in the Rockies organization in 95 and thereafter, the hitters didn't feel that way. That was something that, Bichette and all the Blake Street Bombers said, okay, that's great. But, we know that it's going to play to our advantage too. So, hey, if our pitcher can essentially, back then it was the Coors Field quality start was more like you did actually get 6 innings out of your starter, but he was giving up 5 runs. Hey, that's a quality start. And
it almost didn't matter the run total, right? If you got through that 6th, like, thanks, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you were only down a touchdown at the end of the 6th inning, the Blake Street Bombers were like, okay, we got this. We got it right where we want.
We're in this thing. Yeah.
3-run homer, grand. Let's go.
Totally. So, yes, indeed, Will and Liam, that was fun. Liam, sorry we didn't get the shout out right away on your earlier one, and Will, that we didn't get to your question. I assure you we didn't get to all of ours either. It is imperative that we have him back. He had a tight window today, but we appreciate it. We extended it even as long as we could there. And we will do more of the Rockies all-time home run derby. Thanks for reaching out and appreciating that fun and mostly pretty ridiculous content, but we enjoy doing it. So we're glad you enjoy doing it. We are going to toast our Breckenridge brews on this day. I've got the Avalanche Amber that I was enjoying throughout that. Of course, Patrick still got the Strava Craft coffee going, and we are toasting them to the career of Marvin Freeman. I thought we might have a few minutes to get all this out of the way before he hopped in, but he was on top of it, man. He was ready to go. He came out of the bullpen fired. He wasn't waiting for any of that stuff. He was ready. He was dialed up to 96, 97 out of the bullpen right away. Really appreciate that out of him. So actually, let me do this really quick because as fun as that was, almost as fun as playing WGT golf. Look, I don't want to oversell it. I got to be honest with you. It's a great product, not quite as fun as hanging out with Marvin Freeman, but it's like second on the list. So download it for free today at DNVRgolf.com. And starting this Friday, the 11th through the 13th, that's Sunday, we will be hosting the Ball is Poppin' Classic at Brandon Dunes. All country clubs can participate, and better yet, anyone can win. That's right. All you have to do is join the DNVR 4 Country Club if you haven't played. Head to Brandon Dunes Golf Course. Enter to win the closest to the hole challenge. Submit your screenshot on our pinned Twitter thread at DNVR_sports or email them to info@thednvr.com. Once you have entered to win, we will choose a random winner each week, pick out a DNVR shirt of your choice and a mask, and we ship it right to you. We're hosting new courses every week leading up to Christmas. Picking those winners on Monday. So again, it's Brandon Dunes, closest to the hole for this weekend. Go there, send us your screenshot. You're in. Bam. You don't even have to be good. You can come in dead last and still win a free DNVR shirt and mask. And again, this is for playing a fun, free game on your phone or computer. Download it at dnvrgolf.com.
I feel
real quick. Go ahead.
I feel bad that Cale didn't get a chance to ask his big question, because I know he has so many Marvin Freeman memories from that 95 season. Actually, Cale.
Patrick, quick question. What year do you think I was born? Just off the top of your head.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, gosh, you would have been at least -4 or 5 in 95, something like that.
I'm not quite.
You're 1991, right?
You'd have been negative.
No, I'm like such a baby, Drew.
You're negative. You'd have been -1, right?
I was born in 97, so I would have been -2.
-2. So what do you remember then? So, okay, that's fine. You still have memories at that age, I believe. You were just a soul, just kind of traversing the universe, floating in orbit before you inhibited.
2 years after the Don. Oh my God.
Yeah. So I did ask my dad about Marvin Freeman since he was on the pod. And he just talked about how awesome that 1 year was. My dad's been a season ticket holder for most of my life since opening day in '94. So he has watched a lot of not great pitchers coming in and out, and all he had to say was, "Man, there really was only that 1 year, but boy, was he filthy that year!" Like,
so good, yeah. So his final season in the bigs, he did. I know. Go to spring training as a non-roster invite with Toronto in '97.
I like this.
96 was his final season. So, he finished his career, and then Cale in '97 began his career. So,
coincidence?
There's some symmetry in that. I don't know what that means exactly, but
probably.
You had some questions though too.
Let's run through it,
right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a lot more stuff I wanted to get into there, and there's a lot of stuff that I could have picked his brain all day about the nuances of pitching at altitude and mile high versus Coors Field. That was a question I was asked that he basically took without me asking it. He jumped right into the differences between those two things. Like, fantastic, can check that one off. So, and then obviously, I mean, I just wish we had time to just hear stories. That's the one thing I think next time we have him on, we almost have to have 2 questions about stuff, and then the rest of them just have to be, tell us about this guy. Do you remember what's the weirdest thing you and Vinny Castilla ever got up to? Like, I'm sure there was something.
Word association.
Yeah, totally. And just let him riff because that'll be fun. For those of you looking for a few facts, for those of you born in 1997 and later, who I hope thoroughly enjoyed that conversation, but would like a little more context for it. Marvin Freeman was drafted in the 2nd round by the Philadelphia Phillies in 1984, made his major league debut in 1986 for the Phillies. As you heard him say, though, he feels like he more or less started out with Atlanta. That's where he really started getting stuff going. He had a great debut, really 16 innings pitched for the Phillies that first year. At age 23 to a 2.25 ERA. Got Atlanta in a trade for, what was the guy's name? Joe? I found it. Where was it? Joe Bover, who had a very Marvin Freeman-like career. Yeah. A bit of a journeyman, but stuck around for a long time because he proved himself to be valuable to a lot of different teams, not unlike Marvin Freeman. He ended up with slightly better ERA and ERA plus than a slightly higher career WAR. Then as we talked about there, he spent the next 3 years in Atlanta, team out there before moving to Colorado, being claimed pretty much right after the season. In fact, he became a free agent on October 20th, signed by the Rockies on October 28th. Those were the days. Remember when a season would just end and the team would go out and sign a pitcher? And then comes really the big thing, the feather in the cap year, the 1994 campaign, where he led the league in winning percentage, .833, by going 10-2, put up a raw ERA of 2.80, like you talked about there, over 112 innings, and that 1.79 ERA plus, which adjusts for the fact that he pitched at a pre-humidor, mile-high stadium in, I'll call it an offensive era.
It was pre the official start of PEDs. We obviously know in 98 with McGuire and Sosa, full on hardcore PEDs, probably started a couple years before that. Was it 95? Yeah, probably. But nevertheless, yeah, I mean, that makes it all the more impressive, right? And it makes it all the more phenomenal. And here's another thing that makes what he did so phenomenal. He was not picked up to be a starting pitcher with the Rockies in 95. He only got the opportunity when Kent Bottenfeld, I think he broke his arm or something like that. But he broke his hand in spring training. So he wasn't even, supposed to be on that, club in that spot. He was just going to be another guy in the bullpen, because he'd been very serviceable in that role. And then, goes out and has, this epic season, ties for 4th in the Cy Young Award. Now, the thing that I want to point out, and again, depending on how much time we would have had, I don't know if I would have totally thrown this on him, but I found what appeared to be his 4 worst starts of that year. And they're not even remotely all that bad. Like, it's not good, but you go, hey, didn't have his stuff today. But we've seen, the number 5 starter in the Rockies rotation in the last couple of years. You go, that's a good day for some of those guys. So
didn't his stuff today means couldn't get out of the first inning.
I think his second start at Mile High, 4 innings pitched, 3 earned runs. Okay, not so bad. Again, this is one of his 4 worst starts. Then he's got 7 innings against the Mets, again at Mile High, gave up 4 earned runs. So, oh no, he doesn't get the official quality start. Then against the Dodgers, at Chavez Ravine, 5 2/3 innings pitched. He gives up, can you believe it, 3 earned runs. Oh my God. Wow. His ERA balloons to 3.04. And then his next start out against the Giants at home, only went 2 innings, gave up 2 runs. So, could have been somewhat of an injury issue there. Don't know the back details of it, but you go, those are his 4 worst. So he didn't have one of those, 3 innings and 6 earned runs. And you go, it's not his day, to totally blow up and inflate during a time in which those occurrences happen all the time. Where in the blink of an eye, you give up a grand slam and you're like, there was nobody on base. How did that even happen? My precision is on point. I'm not walking anybody. And yet I just gave up, a grand slam to Steve Finley. Like, that was what happened during that era.
Right. Oh man. Yeah. It really is amazing. So that 179, as I said, it's 13 points higher than Kyle Freeland's 166 in 2018. And obviously even still higher than Ubaldo Jimenez's 161 in 2010. It is a mark. It's going to be very difficult to see another starting pitcher match up with that. It really was. And some of that may just be, the environments and all of that, but that is a substantial. It's not that he's got the best ERA plus in team history, but what was the thing we did? Oh, the other day when it was Dick Allen had the 199 and then Mike Trout had the 198, right? Where with those stats, that's a tie. But 179 to 166, that's not a tie. That's not even close to being a tie. This guy was just better. And that's pretty phenomenal to think that we're still searching for the next Marvin Freeman.
And if you want another way of kind of evaluating that, if you go back to that 94 season, so he ties for 4th in NL Cy Young Award voting. And all right, if you go by WAR, WAR wasn't very nice, that nice to him. He finished about his 4th best wins above replacement of a starting pitcher. But if you look at ERA plus, he was actually 2nd among vote getters. Only Greg Maddux was better with, a 271 ERA plus in the beginning of what was eventually going to become the steroid era. So, Freeman was 2nd, 179 right there. So by that metric, that's another way of saying, hey, this is the best season of all time. Look around the league, compare him with those guys. It's pretty damn good.
Yeah, that's really, really, really quality stuff. He would pitch the next couple of seasons for Colorado, 95 and most of 96. Would quite recapture the magic as he had before. Though in 95, the ERA plus of 91, while obviously, nowhere near where he
Yeah, for Freeman, one of the few guys who actually was able to pitch for the Rockies in both Mile High Stadium, which was previously Bear Stadium. Not many people. I didn't remember it because, again, much like Kale, I wasn't alive when it happened, so technically I'm not remembering it. But what many people don't know is that Mile High, the original Mile High Stadium, was actually Bear Stadium, where the Denver Bears played baseball, and then they fitted it out for football. So Freeman was one of those few guys who pitched again 94 at Mile High. Also got to see what Coors Field is like, and maybe, as he said, if he pitches on a Legends Day. I hadn't heard that. I do like that from the player's perspective, but again, having gone to Old Timers Day at Yankee Stadium and always watching that was always must see TV. Where the first pitch might be 4:05 for the Yankees, that evening, but at noon you go and you watch and you see all the old timers come out. They play for 2 innings tops, and it's just cool to see them, and they're mic'd up on the field too, throwing junk, and you go, oh my God, Goose Gossage from Colorado Springs, is 56 years old. He's still bringing it at, mid to low 80s, much like Marvin Freeman can still do. So it would really be cool. We've talked about it in jest here on the show, but it would be cool if there was some kind of Legends League where you could see that. Again, it might not be as exciting as the big three, for these older or more legendary basketball players, but there's got to be a creative way where you can still see Rickey Henderson being Rickey Henderson, talking about Rickey Henderson, and being the best Rickey Henderson can be. Like, I think we all want that. Right. If people are lining up for an exhibition between Tyson and Roy Jones Jr., come on, Rickey Hendy.
To quote Marvin Freeman from earlier in this episode of this podcast, who wouldn't want to see that? Who doesn't want to see Marvin Freeman in the Rockies Hall of Fame? Who don't want to see Rickey Henderson being Rickey Henderson? Give us what we need.
Rickey Henderson wants to see Rickey Henderson.
I was gonna say, who's at the top of that list? Who's number one on the list of guys who wants to see that.
100%. And speaking of flashy Rickey Henderson type players, I did want to know if Marvin had any good Deion Sanders stories, because that was for one reason or another, that was my guy growing up as a kid, and I've still yet in all my years of recollecting stories and swapping tales of childhood heroes, no one else has ever just had Deion as their favorite player. Everyone goes, oh yeah, great athlete, loved him, fantastic, loved watching him, root for him, but no one had 12 posters up in their room, and no one had all his baseball and football cards,
right?
And no one
football people were there, but very few
I'm sure
baseball, right? Obviously, because in case anyone's confused, there's all that Deion Sanders stuff. Like, yeah, but it was him playing football, wasn't it?
Right. Yeah, and and he never stuck around for a long time. He spent in fact, came up with the Yankees, but spent a lot of time with Atlanta, then a few seasons where he went back and forth with Cincinnati. That's right. Even a little bit with San Francisco, and then in football after Atlanta. He went to San Francisco, then went to Dallas, went back Super Bowls, and was kind of bounced around, retired, came back, Hall of Fame football player. So that would have been cool.
Remember those commercials?
I can only think of one that he had. I think it was for his sneakers, which I did have to have, and that was one of the only sneakers I had to have was the Deion Diamond Turf, I think they were called. Is that it? He was wearing a jumpsuit?
I can't remember the product. I can't remember what they were selling or what it was about, but it was people kept coming to him and trying to get him to choose between things. And so first it was, offense or defense in football. And he would say, both. there's football or baseball.
That's good.
I'd say both. And then it was, and so whatever the product was, I'm sure it was something where they put two things together, or it was like chocolate or peanut butter, both, but that was the punchline. But that is answer to every one of them, and it's just like, I'm gonna do all that, and that's who he was, man. Like he's such an underrated baseball player. We got to do this on the pod sometime. Have we done this? Who cares? We'll do it again. Just the best because Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders are underrated as baseball players, but more Sanders because people fondly remember Bo Jackson as this super athlete.
Was an all-star. Bo was an all-star, yeah.
But like Deion Sanders numbers, I think the average baseball fan, if you went to his fan graphs or baseball reference page right now, and you should, be honest with yourself. If you're like, he could hit. And that's ridiculous that a guy who's an athlete like that could hit. That he could field and run the bases and do all the other things, sure. But hitting a baseball is just a mechanical skill unlike anything else. And Deion was not a terrible hitter. And that, like, almost breaks my brain. We didn't mention him as being an alien yesterday. Maybe it's too obvious.
Yeah. Him, Kyler Murray, Bo Jackson, those guys. Well, the thing with Deion, too, talking about being a good hitter and maybe being overlooked, had Atlanta won the World Series against Toronto in 92, you might have seen Deion as the MVP. Now, he got in only 4 of those games, but the dude in the World Series batted .533. It was 8 for 15, like 5 stolen bases on top of that.
Time, baby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask a dumb, I'm too young to remember this person question?
No, this is perfect because we have plenty of dumb, I'm too young to remember listeners, and you are the voice of them. And you know what? Take the dumb out. You are the voice. So, voice of the generation. Kale, what is your question?
So I'm just like, obviously 2-sport athletes don't exist anymore. No. How is he playing in the World Series during a football season? October, like,
great
it's not
question.
like he was using summer, as his baseball as his off season,
Well, he once played, and I don't remember all the details, but he once played a game. I think it was Atlanta. So it was the baseball game first, day game, and the Falcons had a football game at night. Got on a helicopter, went, and he also played for the Falcons that night. 2 sports in one day. So basically he did this a lot where he would just show up for game day in the NFL. Baseball's an everyday sport. We know football's 1 day a week. And he was so good. He was he was one of the first lockdown corners in that way. So it was just like, yeah, who am I covering? And Art Monk. Cool. Yeah, I'll get that guy. Jerry Rice. Yep. Obviously I'm going to shut that guy down.
Got him.
John Taylor. Got it. It was a done deal.
It's so weird because I believed it when I was a kid so much. I was like, oh, he plays 2 sports just like my friends and I do, right?
That's awesome. Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
As a kid, you don't think twice about it.
Oh,
and then
like Brandon?
I'm an adult,
yeah, not really like Brandon.
Now part of my job is covering these teams on a day in and day out basis. I'm like, how did he manage? Football is a full-time, 60-hour-a-week job during the season. I don't understand.
Yeah, I think one of the other reasons why we don't see that so often is, not necessarily the rise of social media, but just in the 24-hour news cycle we have, even just for sports, players would just get too much criticism. And it's like, well, wait a minute, if you're over here, it means you're not here. And this team needs you. And you're giving that time to this. And then it just opens the door to all that kind of criticism. And we're just kind of in an era now where that's not necessarily the case. In fact, in the Bo Jackson documentary, he almost or someone makes the point that he's the last guy that you can have these oral histories of, or these stories of I once saw Bo Jackson. He used a broken bat and he hit the ball off the end of the bat and it still went 575 feet. There's no evidence of it. There's no video. And now, right, we live in an era where everything is recorded and you can't have these kind of mythical or mystical guys that get unnoticed and, can't get observed. So, I think Deion was from that era. So was Bo, and they were mythical creatures, and you didn't know how they were doing it, but you wanted to go along for the ride and watch it.
Something else.
So again, back to my original question: how was he playing in the World Series in the NFL during the same month?
Because football is 1 day a week. And
like, did he just not go to practice during the World Series?
Yes.
Like,
He didn't go to practice during the season either.
Yeah.
Like, he was getting paid. And again, I think that was part of the deal that, that was worked out because I believe he was taken the 10th pick in the 88 drafts by the Falcons. And I think it was probably worked out like, look, I'm, I play with the Yankees. He was a minor leaguer. He was still a young guy. And it was just known like, look, I gotta see this out. I got to do both. And it might not be great for, on the field, and the Falcons, they stunk at that time. It really wasn't until, 92, 93 when they started getting good and they finally, got into the playoffs and were able to beat the Saints in the first round. But it brought the Falcons a lot more spotlight. Like, no one was a Falcons fan unless you were in the Atlanta area, and Falcons weren't a national, they weren't a national team. Like, now the NFL is a global brand, so it doesn't matter. Even the Jaguars is like, you could just be a Jaguar and love the logo and all that. So I think by being this really intriguing guy that maybe ESPN does a story on here, Sports Illustrated is writing about, and they go, wait, there's a guy doing it for the Falcons and the Yankees or Atlanta. It just brought attention. And so I think it brought a lot more money into the Falcons organization in a good way. And he was still getting it done. He was still fantastic. Guy was still a Pro Bowler, lockdown cornerback. And you go, well, does he need to be here? Of course, everyone around him certainly would have benefited from his skills based on the other.
What's he need practice for?
Right. The only thing you could possibly say is eventually, at a certain point, much like you were kind of talking about in that commercial, Drew, is he got to a point where baseball's not my thing, and he would still play it, before the football season would start, and football became the focus. He goes, all right, well, I need some kind of challenge. Let me be a wide receiver. And he tried his hand at being a wide receiver and was decent, not great, but he was still decent enough that, he was, when he's on the field, you go, crap. All right. What do we got to do? Like, it just causes chaos, and there's guys like that in the NFL now, but it's still kind of a rarity. You're almost surprised you don't see it more where you just got guys with great hands like Dion did, and have that speed. And you say, let's see if we can use them on offense and defense. It's just, I think now in the NFL, everything is so, specified to one area, and you need to know a lot more. You can't just show up and go, hey, QB, I'm going to do this route. I'm going to pick my own route, and you need to remember the play. Right. I don't think you can just do that now like you could have, 25 years ago.
I mean, that happens a lot more often than I think you would realize. It just doesn't happen with big names. Like in the NFL, a lot of people change positions, like from like a practice squad perspective, especially from college going to the NFL, where say they were undersized at a position in college where their speed made up for it. But when you get to the NFL, like, you just can't be a defensive lineman that's 200 pounds. Like, it just doesn't work. So I think you see guys change position, that type of thing, but it always happens with guys on the low end of the roster, not necessarily a Deion Sanders going, I don't want to play. I mean, that'd be Aqib Talib all of a sudden being like, you know what? I know we just won the Super Bowl last year. Let's try and can I try my hand at wide receiver?
Yeah. I mean, there's not really many, two-sport athletes anymore. There's guys who, again, kind of get on the precipice. We've talked about Russell Wilson. He was a prospect in the Rockies organization. I think it was like a 4th-round pick. And the Yankees own his rights. So yet another Rockies player, with the Yankees. You had Kyle Parker was a guy who played football. I think at Oklahoma, was a quarterback.
I mean, obviously you have Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray,
was a top 10 pick in both sports, which is crazy. So, I mean, I guess he's really the only one that is comparable to Deion that his skill set would have warranted it.
Yeah.
But there's just no, like, in a modern NFL, especially a quarterback, there's no way they would let anybody do that. They'd say, you're especially a quarterback, they'd go, you're going to go risk injuring yourself in another sport. We're paying you $25 million. No, like,
yeah, that's the kind of the big piece. And I think that's where teams go, no, sorry, we kind of own you in a lot of ways, for better or worse, right? Because it comes with some, it comes with that guaranteed money, it comes with that certainty. But you're right, teams just aren't allowing that. Tom Glavine, interesting. He was actually selected in 84, only a couple of picks before Marvin Freeman. He was also drafted by the LA Kings, one of the few kind of two-sport guys that had anything to do with hockey. No one really has ever had anything to do with professional hockey and baseball. Of course, our own Larry Walker, but it's very minimal. Now there's been
Larry Walker.
Yeah, there's actually been a couple guys who did basketball and baseball. Not a lot. Danny Ainge, GM of the Celtics, borderline. He's not a borderline Hall of Famer, but he was a very good ball player. Played a little bit with the Toronto Blue Jays. Charlie Ward did the football to basketball route because he was a great QB with Florida State. Had a solid career with the Knicks. Also with basketball, Chris Young, we just named general manager of the Texas Rangers, played college ball at Princeton. I thought he had gotten drafted by the Kings. Maybe he just got a practice squad kind of deal before kind of giving that up to become a pitcher. But it's so hard to do. Even just like signing with teams in two different sports is like, that's just an echelon you just don't see. And it's like, good for you, dude. You did both.
Not that we have to spend a lot of time on this because there's literally a whole ESPN 30 for 30 on the subject. But if we're talking about two-sport athletes in Denver history and we're not bringing up John Elway, something's gone wrong because that's the whole reason he ended up in Denver in the first place. But we don't need to go into that because everybody knows that story.
Oh, man. In 1992, Deion Sanders hit over 300. He played 97 baseball games for the Braves, and he hit over 300, on base 346, and slugged 495. He also stole 26 bases, hitting 8 home runs. That's a WRC plus of 136. He also had 3 interceptions and played 13 games, had 105 yards receiving that year for the Atlanta Falcons. Like, and a little bit later, my favorite Deion Sanders stat is actually in 1997 for the Cincinnati Reds. He stole 56 bases.
Wow. Did he lead the league in triples that year? I know he was a triples machine. No, 92 he led the league with 14. But yeah, I mean, the dude was, obviously crazy fast. That was a great poster. I would love to see that again. I've got it somewhere in an attic back in Jersey, where it was him on first base with baseball club, and turning on his back foot to steal second base, and by the time he's halfway to second, he morphs into Deion running with the Falcons uniform on. So so Cale, that question you're asking, like, how did he do both those things at the same time? It actually was that mythical 92 season, October 11th, Sanders and the Falcons played the Dolphins at Joe Robbie Stadium in Miami. Then he flew to Pittsburgh, so it wasn't a helicopter ride in Atlanta. Flew to Pittsburgh for the NLCS, so it was playoffs. That's just bonkers, right?
Yeah, that's nuts. Like, I can't even like. Playoff baseball is just like one of the most mentally taxing things on the planet, just as is. I can't imagine trying to play another sport at the same time. Like, it's so baffling to me.
All right, Cale, we'll
a couple of football games while you're doing it.
We'll do a little mini hitting for the cycle here. Now, tell me, which of these two things is true? So it's just a one-off question here, Cale. Which of these things is true? Deion Sanders released a rap album, or Deion Sanders hosted Saturday Night Live?
Oh, it's the rap album.
Drew?
I would also assume the rap album. I feel like I would have remembered a Deion SNL thing, but
that's the thing. I'm like an SNL guy, and I think I've watched all the ones hosted by famous, like, former sports figures, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
Cale and Drew, as the host of the show, of course, it is my purview to throw you a curveball. The answer is both. So he had a rap album and then also hosted Saturday Night Live, where he performed those songs. Yes.
Wait, he was the host and the musical guest?
Yes. Wow. I think there may have been another musical guest. I'm not sure, but he may have quite literally been the first one who ever did that.
That could have been one of the two things in the commercial.
On his own episode. Wow.
The episode was not great. I think it was around 94, 95. So it was 94, 95. That was right when, I forget what magazine it was. Maybe it was Rolling Stone. And they said it Saturday night dead, because that was, I think, that was when a lot of guys had jumped ship. Mike Myers, Chris Rock, just Rob Schneider, who was big on SNL at that point.
Yeah,
Sandler stuck around a little bit, but again, his buddies weren't there to kind of do his thing. Farley stuck around, Spade stuck around. It was really just those three guys, and so they did some kind of scene where it was the players all getting in the room, and I think Chris Farley. Actually, it's a very good clip. If you could find it, it would be great. I'm pretty sure. What baseball player do you think Chris Farley was in 94, 95?
Oh my gosh. I have no idea.
Yeah, when I tell you, you're gonna go, yeah.
It would have been.
You broke up, but I think you got it. John Crook. Yes. How bad do you want to see that right now? How bad do you want to watch that?
John Crook.
Yeah. Oh God, that'd be a good cut. Maybe that'll be how we start our show next week.
The whole skit, I think, got crickets. But you go, I don't care. It's Farley. It's John.
They didn't know who Crockers was. We do. We're gonna enjoy it. Enjoy it. We'll have to do that next week.
It was also notable because again, those guys that were in that cast, Norm Macdonald was also there too, and we know he's a wild card. They just did whatever they want. There was a scene where they were I think they were like an alien ship had landed, and Chris Farley's like, I'll go inside the ship. And as he runs in, his pants literally fall down and his butt's just hanging out. And that's just Farley. But like that's a notable clip where you go, wow, they were wild at that point. And Dion was the host, musical guest.
That is wild. Also, I want to apologize for taking this show so off the rails with my one question.
Cool. Guess what, Kale? I want to thank you for taking the show off the rails. Thank you. This is why you are the super producer, because you've given us a gift and you haven't even realized it.
And the only way to follow up Marvin Freeman was going to be Deion Sanders on SNL with Chris Farley's pants falling down. That's the only way. What were we going to do? Turn around and start talking about the Rockies organizational depth chart again? Come on. But we're going to do more of that tomorrow.
In our pre-production meeting, we actually did want to talk about Chris Farley's pants falling down. We just didn't know how we were going to get to it. We thought we were going to go this way. Kale, you took us on a different route, but we still got to our end goal. So, dude, you were great. You're fine.
About both the destination and the journey. Who knows where we will end up or where we will go on tomorrow's podcast. We do know that the day after that, we'll be doing Free Trade Friday stuff, getting you all those fun, interesting, and potentially strange trade proposals at baseballtradevalues.com. Send us yours if you've got some ideas of your own on how to either make the Rockies a whole lot better or tear them down and make them worse so that they can be better in a couple of years. Whatever you got, go there, send it to us. And the only way to do that is to either email us, Drew or Patrick at thednvr.com. Follow us on social media at Drew Creasman, at Patrick Lyons, at DNVR. I really want to send trades Kale's way at Kale Sorbo. He'll be a little confused, but he'll send them right along to us right after you've done that. And you can always hit him up and let him know if you've enjoyed these shows, as I've seen so many of you here in the comments. We appreciate it. And obviously, you got to give Kale a follow for producing the thing, for making it happen. So the last thing you got to do, subscribe to the DNVR.com. You know, it's the one place where you're going to get all that written content for all the 4 major sports, plus the 2 college beats, plus the rugby situation going on. And you get discounts on hats, shirts, masks. When the DNVR bar reopens, which sounds like it's going to get to be relatively soon, you get a bigger beer when you come hang out with us. You get to hang out in the Discord chat, which means then you get real crazy. When do you want to talk about your favorite music, video games, The Mandalorian? Make sure you subscribe to the DNVR Watches podcast feed so you can hang out with us for that, and the DNVR gaming feed. Because I'll tell you what, man, there's only one sport going on right now. The Broncos are having a rough time out there. We're all stuck inside, but we here at DNVR are just blaring content out there at you, and we are happy to hang out with you along the way, especially as we get ready for the next Nugget season to pop off here too. So make sure you're subscribed to the DNVR.com, because you get all of that just for doing it. And we get to call you our friends, members of our community. And thank you for always being absolutely awesome out there. We promise you we will continue to always be absolutely Patrick Lyons and Drew Creasman in here, and Kale Sorbo. Wouldn't want to lead you out there, super producer. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.